So, Geoff, we've been talking a lot lately in relationship about what it means, what mutual service means, um, and personal responsibility in relationship, and um, the corrosive and destructive effects of double standards in relationship. So, what do you do in a relationship when one partner or the other is so wrapped up in their emotions that they can't admit they did something wrong, even when an outside observer would objectively review the facts and think, that person is in the wrong in this case.
Yeah.
So what do you do?
Well, this is up with some of my clients and some of our undaunted men in our community, and they're dealing exactly with that problem where their partner is. I doubt they're often deliberately trying to gaslight their man, but the net effect is one life, 1 minute is open, available, vulnerable. Then half an hour later, that woman might be completely on a tear, armored up, AK-47s, metaphorically speaking, at the ready. And there is an alternative facts thing that goes on here. And it really is dependent, it seems, a lot of the time, on what the woman is feeling. Because I heard this great quote yesterday that men are loyal to their purpose. They're loyal, like good men that have their shit together, are loyal to their own personal code of honor, integrity, accountability. And men think in terms of what needs to be done in any given situation. Women are loyal to their feelings. And that came from a woman. And I think this, when you got two versions of objective reality, for the first part of what to do around it is, let's say it's the wife or girlfriend that is seeing a very different objective reality. The one who is seeing it has to be extremely centered and grounded in himself and what he knows to be true, including about himself.
Mm-hmm.
Because accusations get, well, you're, and, the guy will have the finger pointed at him. And when I've seen one man forget himself temporarily enough where he really started believing the alternative facts or perspective. And the work that we did with him was to reorient him, one, to his spirit. What does your spirit and your spiritual heart know to be true? What do you want? And having to remain a stand for that reality and the wants as best as possible in the face of the feminine, because in this person's case, his partner's feminine is the one going all over the place. And what happens with a lot of these guys is they know their reality, but if their partner interprets a different reality, they can get caught in feeling like, am I crazy? Or am I missing something? So job one is to get back to self, what you know to be, what you're about, what kind of person you are, and what your intention is as a partner. Then, when you hit that kind of impasse, which creates a double standard that you were mentioning a minute ago, the double standard of your job is to take care of my needs and my emotional regulation. My job is to just get what I need. Oh, and you want you want something too? Well, give me mine, and then maybe I'll give you yours, whatever yours is. And guys can get, spun around the axle in that kind of dynamic. And that's where you really want to get two things to help you through to the other side. One is be in a men's group, because one man this week was spiraling really badly, and he didn't think to connect with his group right away. Like when he started catching, he was spinning, and then he connected with the group, and we were able to really help him get back to himself and really help him remember, and also to remember that this has happened in the past, and it almost always works out for this particular man and his partner. The other thing you need is you need a coach, or, either a relationship coach or a relationship therapist, and get a third party who's able to actually reflect what they're hearing as two competing realities. There's this that you're saying, and there's that you're saying. So having a third party be able to help them get to the one reality is crucial. And all that before you get to root causes of why this is even happening in the first place.
So would you say that in your estimation, I'll say most, so that I avoid speaking in absolute terms, most of the time it's the man's responsibility, or the more masculine partner's responsibility to lead the couple out of that circumstance? Because clearly, if when you're at home, there's not going to be a third party readily available.
Right.
So would you say that typically it's the man's responsibility to suck it up, push his feelings down, calm the waters, and file it away for when there is that third party available?
That's what I would do as a starting point. I mean, there are a lot of guys that don't like hearing that, but tough noogies. I mean, that's the gift of the masculine, is holding containers energetically, including holding your partner's chaotic or reactionary feminine energy. And you're right, you don't always have a third party around. So when you know who you are and you know what you truly stand for, no matter what, and then you're getting a lot of emotional reactivity and truth bending. And I'm not going to say that the majority of women deliberately bend the truth. I don't think that would be true. But they're in the truth in the hall of mirrors between their ears. And they're not seeing the distorted reflections that are in there. But if a guy can keep bringing her back to, all right, if you're going to be roiling and reacting right now, here's a limit for what I'm able and willing to hold. So I'll listen, and I'm not going to give you advice without you asking for it, but I will listen, and then I'm going to tell you what I actually heard and how I interpret it. And then we're going to be able to see where there might be some common ground. So yeah, I think it's our job to lead that as best we can. And if we're too, activated or triggered and we're in our own shit, then, I think with the majority, if not all of our guys in our groups, they're getting regular practice at catching themselves when they start going to that place, getting sucked in, thinking that it's their responsibility to fix the fact that their partner is really upset. and automatically assuming it must be their fault that's creating the upset. So to be able to use a strong masculine energy to kind of reset the stage, kind of, it's not Tetris, but it's like you got to be able to find enough unifying threads to try and bring the chaotic energy into something, manageable instead of all that, which is my experience of the feminine a lot of the time.
Right. So what do you do? Let's say let's say that the couple is in counseling, but there's always a gap, right, between appointments. So there's a conflict, and should either partner, one or the other, attempt to resolve the conflict without the third party? And if so, what's the best way to approach attempting to resolve that issue?
Well, I think that I'll say first, if you are going to try and resolve it yourselves, then one thing that is really useful is if each partner is first sharing what they're experiencing and their interpretation, and they're both writing it down. They're writing each other's, and for a lot of us, taking some notes or writing, journaling to empty my thoughts out can be really helpful. But to try and combat that he said, she said, I see blue, you see black, writing down what your intentions are, what, if you think about the issue getting resolved, what is it on the other side of that resolution that you're really hoping to be able to start experiencing within yourself and with your partner, and vice versa. Mutual service. If we have a problem, we need to be helping each other through that problem as a team
Mm-hmm.
for the good of each person. But the relationship also really has to be committed to win-win. We both are going to try our best to get core needs met. Sometimes you're going to have to compromise or wait. But if the main thread starts with, it's you and I against this issue, not you and I against each other, which is where a lot of arguments go when we get triggered, and then we go young, and then we have little kids coming out of our mouth, which doesn't help much.
Right. Right. So last thing.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Didn't mean to interrupt.
No, I just want to make sure I answered your question.
Oh, yeah. Really well. Thank you. So last thing, we both agree, and when we're working with each other, when we're working with ourselves, when we're working with the men in our groups or any of our clients, that we are responsible for our own triggers, being triggered. We're responsible for our own emotions. We're responsible for our own feelings. We are fully responsible for our own reactivity.
Correct.
That
And
being
not
said,
anyone else's.
correct. So here's the question.
Mm-hmm.
Because in my experience, most couples, it's not just one person triggering the other person. It's both people trigger each other.
Yep.
What is the responsibility of the person that said the triggering thing, in your view?
Well, I'll tell you, and I want to be really candid, that this is one of those, it's a pretty simple answer, and it's hard as hell to pull it off,
Right.
is to actually and I want to give credit where credit's due for this, because it's something I heard at a live event many years ago from Jack Canfield, the author of Chicken Soup for the Soul. He really emphasized, because he was sharing, it wasn't about relationships, but he talked a lot about his wife, who he'd been with, for decades and decades. And a woman in the audience asked him, what do you attribute the success of your relationship? Because he clearly, after 40 some odd years, still really loved his wife. That was obvious. And just touting what an amazing team they were. So he said to that lady's question, what was the secret? He said, whenever my wife was upset with me, I actually started, before I would even address it, with looking at where could she be correct? How am I showing up? And this is the gold nugget quote that I've never forgotten. I need to look at how I'm showing up or not showing up, such that she could even be thinking this about me, or that she could even be accusing me of something that doesn't fit my reality. I've got to get over there in her shoes first, as best I can, from a place of taking and looking for personal responsibility for my part of what we're tussling about. And then if you can get that and you share that, then one, you might disarm your partner's, scared and upset ego enough that she can listen from an untriggered place. So that's where I think we need to start, and have the wisdom that if you're really jacked up and triggered, then you've got to say, we will deal with this tonight or tomorrow. But the other big mistake people make is they want to try and get it worked out while they're both really triggered and really reactive. So the leader has to be the one to say, hey, time out. We need to take a breather. Go handle moving our own emotional energy, so that we're back to both heart and mind being clearer, and then start trying to work through it.